happens when the sun goes down? Here's what happens. Some people give into the night. That's what happens, When the sun goes down for some people, they give into the night. They go ahead and they chase the night. They chase the darkness. Some people do that. Some people fall asleep when the sun goes down. And their life comes to a halt when the sun goes down. Some people fall asleep. Some people give in to hopelessness, right? They give in to the fact that darkness has come, and they stop caring about things that are important when the sun goes down. I want to share with you what to do or some things to do when the sun goes down. Okay, when the sun goes down. The first thing is this. When the sun goes down, you seek what is next. Okay? You seek what's next. That's what you do when the sun goes down. Okay? And you seek that in God. You seek, what does God want me to do next? Because we all come to places in our life where we go through phases, right? Phases of life. And one chapter comes to an end and another one begins. And the sun goes down and another one comes up, and we have to keep moving. Or maybe you stopped a job and you started a new job, and the sun went down on one and it's coming up on another. Okay? Maybe on your first child, the sun went down, and now you're on your third child, and that's like a whole new world, right? Right? It's going to be, right? Yeah, it's going to be a whole new world, right? Maybe it's the end of a relationship that you've had. The sun has gone down on that. What do you do when the sun goes down? You seek God for what's next. God, what do you want me to do next? You pray, right? We're talking about change. We're talking about things change in our lives. That's how God designed it. He designed life to change, to constantly be changing and growing and getting better. We sometimes give into the idea that if it's not broke, don't fix it. How many of you have said that? Just because it's not broke doesn't mean it can't be better, right? Just because it's not broke doesn't mean it can't be improved. Sometimes we use that statement just to stay where we are because we don't want to go anywhere else. We don't want to change. But just because it's not broke doesn't mean we can't do things more effectively in our own lives, in the church, in your home, wherever, at work. We've got to be growing, moving, changing. That's how God designed us. And I hope this church is becoming a church that is willing and ready to change, that we know we have to constantly be changing if we're going to constantly be alive and in motion with God. We don't ever want to get stagnant, never. I hope you don't ever want to get stagnant in your life, or in this church, or in your family. We're always pressing forward to do what God wants us to do. What's next, right? We're praying for direction. We're casting all of our cares on Him. The psalmist said this, Psalm 41 said this, I waited patiently for the Lord, and He heard my cry. See, when the sun goes down and you begin to seek what's next, you wait patiently on God. That's what we do. We wait patiently on the Lord because He is going to hear your cry. And what we do while we're waiting and while we're looking for the building blocks of God in our life. Like, where has He been? Because that's a good indication of where He's going. We connect the dots in our life. This is what God's been up to in me, and this is a good indication of where He's going to take me next. Not always, but usually. And we begin to see what He's been doing all through our lives, and that helps us kind of get a glimpse of maybe what He wants to do next, how He wants to build on what He's built. Okay, what might be next? Because He's always working on you. He's always working on us. And when the sun goes down, it only means that something came to an end and something new is about to be born, right? Birthed out of that. And we want to find that. I want to know what that is. I want to look for that. Every so often you complete a mission or the mission at hand, maybe a ministry or something that God has you doing, and the sun goes down on that mission, and it's time to move on to what is next. It's time to move on to what's next. The psalmist said this in 102, but you, God, you remain the same. Your years will never end. And so the good news is this, even though our lives change all the time, our God does not. He's right there waiting for you to call on Him. In the midst of change in your own life and whatever's going on in this world, He's always there. He's constant. He's not going anywhere. You can depend on Him in an ever-changing life. That's good news, isn't it? When the sun goes down, number 2, you come back to the one who loves you and gave his life for you. That's what you do when the sun goes down. And what I'm talking about is like when life gets confusing, when uncertainty is in the air, when you're not sure what's going to happen next, or something happens unexpectedly and you don't know what to do. Here's what you do when the sun goes down. You come back to the one who loves you and gave his life for you. Like, so tomorrow is this eclipse day, right? This eclipse event. And so I made up this kind of movement, this little move. You might want to try it sometime. It goes like this. Okay, so just try that. It's like eclipse event. See, it's eclipse. Get it? Eclipse event. So it's like, but then you got to add something else to this. So I got something else we're going to add to this. Because it's an eclipse event, we have to put goggles on. Okay. All right, so here we go. Eclipse event. Get it? Got it? Try it. Come on. Give it. Just try it with me. Humor me a little bit. Here we go. Ready? Go. Eclipse event. Eclipse event. I don't know. These are one of your guys, aren't they? They were at the beach with us. Yes? Catch. All right, so try that eclipse event sometime. It's gonna be awesome. Okay, when you go home, you're gonna try. You're gonna get in the mirror and you're gonna go eclipse event. You gotta say eclipse event. You gotta put the goggles on. And you're ready. And basically, what that's all about, kind of dumb, is I don't even know what it's about. What it's about really is there are times when things happen and people get all uptight. They get all worried. What good is worrying going to do us, right? If the world ended tomorrow, I just hope you're ready. I hope we're ready. If it ends tomorrow, fine. It's all good, right? If you know Jesus, it's all good. It's okay. When it comes to like confusion and uncertainty and things that happen when the sun goes down, and we have to turn back to God. That's what we do. We come back to the one who we know loves us, and he came from heaven. He gave his life for you. So in the midst of uncertainty and in the midst of confusion, come back to him. All of the apostles learned this the hard way, more than once. But probably the most intense time for the apostle, you remember it, they're in that upper room. Remember that amazing night? They're in the upper room, and Jesus, he washes their feet, which begins to cause a little confusion. But they just think they're coming together for some fellowship. We're just meeting in the upper room, going to have a meal. And they're thinking, this is awesome. We're just here with Jesus, and he's teaching us, and we're eating. He just washed our feet, and that's kind of odd. And he said something about Peter, and then he said something about Judas, and there's this sense of confusion beginning to penetrate the air. And even the apostles begin to get a little concerned. And then they move out of the upper room and they go to the garden, and Jesus there, he's praying, and he's intense, and now they're intense, and they're confused, and they're tired, and they're falling asleep. And then all these guards come, and the lights come, and the lanterns, and they arrest Jesus. And what do the apostles do? They run. They scatter. That's what they did. They cowardly ran away, afraid, filled with fear and uncertainty and confusion. They didn't know what to do. They were scared. And there are times in your life and in my life that you feel distant, that you feel like, God, where are you? And you may even feel alone, like I can't do this. And when you feel that the sun has gone down, maybe when sin comes in and it's caused confusion, or troubles have come in and they've risen and are beating you down, you come back to Jesus. You come back to the one who loves you and gave his son for you. That's what you do. That's what you do when the sun goes down. In Romans chapter 8, Paul says this. Look what he says. He says, knowing all these things, we are more, if you're a believer, you're a Christian, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I'm convinced, Paul says, that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Paul says, nothing can separate you. Nothing in this world, no eclipse will ever separate you from God's love. Nothing. No nuclear bomb, no fear, no anything, not even death can separate you from him. You come back to your senses when that happens and the sun goes down and confusion sets in and you remember the one who loves you and gave his life for you. Number 3, what happens when the sun goes down? When the sun goes down, you hold on to the promise and the power of the resurrection. Yeah, that's what you do. You realize that the power that is in you is greater than the power in this world. And that you have power to rise again. We're talking about death, right? Death, it comes knocking all the time, every day, somebody you know, somebody you love, somebody that a friend of yours knows or loves. Death will come knocking. It's coming. It's going to come knocking on my door one day. It's going to come knocking on your door. And when the light goes out, what will you do then? When that death comes knocking on your door, what are you going to do then? John 11, Lazarus dies. Remember that story, Lazarus? And Jesus waits several days, and then he goes to the town where Lazarus lived. Lazarus is his friend, and his sisters, Mary and Martha, are there. And there's a lot. He's been dead now. He's been buried, and there's a lot of crying and mourning and wailing going on. And in John 11, verse 17, look what it says. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Mary and Martha to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. And Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. He's been in a tomb for 4 days. He's as dead gets. And Jesus says to her, your brother will rise again. When God says your brother will rise again, you can believe that. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. It's not some day. Jesus says it's me. The resurrection you're looking for is in me, not in an event someday in the future. The only hope of your resurrection is Jesus, the person of Jesus. And he says, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. And then he says to her, do you believe this? See, the question isn't, is Jesus the resurrection and the life? Yes, he is. The question is, do you believe he is? Have you put your trust in him? Have you put your faith in the one who has power over death? When the sun goes down, you hold on to the promise and the power of the resurrection. He who believes in me, he said, will live even though he dies. So when your life comes to a close, when your grandma, your grandpa, your parents pass away, you lose a child, you lose a close friend, they leave this earth. When your days here are done, when the sun goes down on your breath of life, it may go down, but it will not go out. You have hope. We have hope because of Jesus. The promise of God is activated, and his power will give life to your eternal soul. When the sun goes down, you trust in Jesus and you hold on to the power of the resurrection. Paul said, Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, and the enemy of death has been destroyed. That's good news, right? That's hope. When the sun goes down, we got hope. We got hope after the sun goes down. What to do when the sun goes down? You seek what's next. You come back to Jesus and his love. You hold on to the power of the resurrection. And finally, when all seems hopeless, when all seems hopeless, when it all seems to come unglued in your little world, and when the world seems impossible to reach because sometimes it just seems like it's useless, it's an impossible task. People are so lost, and they really don't care, it seems. When you begin to feel that way, and darkness seems to be gaining all the ground, and you feel overwhelmed, and everything around you is in chaos, you keep watch, because the sun will come down. You keep watch, because the sun will come down. Okay, that's our hope. That's what we hold on to. In the twinkling of an eye, with the loud command, with the voice of the archangel, with the trumpet call of God, Jesus will come just like he said. The sun will no longer shine. The moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky. The heavenly bodies will be shaken, and the Son of Man will appear in the sky on the clouds with great power and with great glory. Oh, the sun will come down, and we will say, the King is here. We will say, the King is here. What a day that will be, right? Are you looking forward to that day? I hope you are. I hope you're just like, you can't wait for that day. Someone once said, when the sun goes down, the stars come out. Cole said that a minute ago. Good job, Cole. Fact is, the sun doesn't go anywhere. We do, but that's beside the point. Here's what I say. I say, don't lose hope, because the star will come. The bright and morning star is on his way. And Paul says, therefore, Paul says, encourage one another with these words. Encourage one another with this truth. When the sun goes down, and the world seems so chaotic and so lost, and you feel confused, or you feel alone, or death has knocked again on the door of your life or your family, when the sun goes down, you look up.